Requesting connection. Established. Encrypted. We're live. The show you've been asking for. Advice, technology, and community. Linux first, all others second. This is Ask Noah.
Live from Logos Radio Studios, the show that puts you, the listener, in the driver's seat because you are the content. The phone lines are open to be a part of the program. It's a free call, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624. And give me a call. We'll have a conversation about your tech questions or business and tech questions. Linux advocate, above all else, small business owner, and now host of the only radio show centered around you, the listener. Welcome to the Ask Noah Show. My name is Noah Chalais. Good evening to you all. Joining me in studio is a good friend of mine, founder and operator of Sam Baker News, Will Beaton. Welcome to the studio.
Hi, Noah. Thank you so much. I love being here.
Hey, we appreciate having you. So, for those of you that don't know, a lot of you probably consume this program in podcast form, but it is in fact a radio show. And so Will and I are in here at the Logos Radio Studios and having some equipment configuration differences from the engineers that are here. So we had to have them kind of work through some things and have them tweak some things to our liking. But we are here, and we are happy to be here with you answering your questions. Rob starts us off this hour from New York. Hi, Rob. Welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hi, Noah. Thanks for having me on. I just have a quick question about some hard drives I recently purchased pretty cheaply on Amazon. I bought 3 Hitachi 3 terabyte 7200 RPM drives, and they've been recertified. So I don't know who is certifying them, where they're coming from, but I'd like to put them in a free NAS box. And before I do so, I would like to test them for errors and possibly stress them as well to see if they're going to work long term. So do you have any suggestions for me?
Yeah, the argument for buying refurbished anything is kind of something along the lines of, if I bought this device and it's refurbished, the reason it's refurbished is because somebody first bought that device and something didn't work, so they took it back to the store sent it back to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer then fixed that particular problem. So the argument is that it's already been sort of quality checked in a way, and then anything that was found or that was defective was broken. That doesn't really apply to hard drives, right? Because there's really no way to actually refurbish a hard drive. I mean, what are you going to do? Take the platters out and put new platters? It wouldn't be cost effective. And hard drives are so cheap to begin with. So usually when something says that it is factory certified, refurbished, or usually what that means is that they have taken it out and they've done what you're asking about, that they've taken the drive out of the machine and they've run it against a set of tests, a set of metrics, and then they have tried. I don't know if Phoronix has a disk stress testing kit, or if that's something that exists, or if that's something you could use like System Rescue CD or whatever to do. But all that to say, I wouldn't buy a refurbished drive, to be honest with you. Western Digital. Will, you just bought some Reds. Do you remember what those cost? The 6 terabyte?
I think it was around 300 something.
Per drive?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I'm remembering correctly.
Okay. So that's a little more than I was thinking. But, especially if you're building. So here's the other side of that. Rob. The other way you could look at it is FreeNAS is so remarkably good at recovering from failures. If you wanted to try to save some money, and if and when that drive dies, then it's literally a matter of putting another drive in and clicking a button, assuming you don't have more than one drive failure at the same time. And this is coming from a person who bought brand new Western Digital Reds and had one fail within 2 months. So I guess that's the other way of looking at it, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I mean, these drives were only $60 a piece, so I figured I'd take my chances with them and see how they work out.
I'm going to change my answer. I'm going to agree with you. I think for that's about half the price of a 4 terabyte Red, and for what you're going to save in the money, you could actually probably pick up a cold shelf drive and keep that on hand, and you'd still be ahead of the game. So that might be what I would do. As far as how to actually test that drive, I guess I've never stress tested a drive myself. I would check out Phoronix and see if they don't have a testing suite. And I would also check out System Rescue CD, see if there isn't something in there. And if I find something after the show, if the chat room knows of anything, we'll throw it in the show notes. Elijah is calling from Idaho. Hi, Elijah. Welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, Noah. How you doing?
Excellent. How can we help, sir?
Okay, so I have a Windows box, and I'd like to take the Windows box and turn it into a VM with all of the programs and everything on it, and slap it on a Windows box and access it via VirtualBox or Virt Manager.
Okay. Actually, interestingly enough, Microsoft, of all companies, actually makes a tool to do this. I'm going to find the name of the program for you right now, but basically what it is it's a program that you'll run on the physical hardware, and basically what that here it is. It's called disk2vhd.exe, and basically what this does is this disk2vhd.exe takes a physical computer and turns it into a virtual hard disk, and you can then use something like libvirtd, and you can take that virtual disk and attach it. So when you go to make your install, instead of installing from a local media, you'll say use an existing disk, and then you'll point it to that virtual disk file, and you'll actually be able to boot your physical machine on virtual hardware. We actually took an entire office, Elijah, and we did this. We took an entire office, and they were running on physical hardware, and we wanted to virtualize them. So we took their entire office, and one by one, we converted each one of their machines to virtual disks. And we took those machines and put them on a libvirtd server and had them set them up with thin clients, and then had them RDP back into their virtual machines, which were duplicates essentially of their, not essentially, they were exact duplicates of their physical hardware. Does that sound like that would work for you?
That would work great. Now, what's the advantage of doing that? Like with what you say with that office, what's the advantage of doing that?
Yeah. So let's say we have a client and they call in and they say, "Well, gosh darn, I installed the real life example. This actually happened. They used a PDF program called Nuance, and we installed the latest version of Nuance with I think it was Service Pack." One of the it was a service pack, I think. There was the newest service pack for Windows 7, I think it was. And turns out that Nuance PDF program was not compatible, and so the computer blue screened upon boot. Now, if that had been physical hardware, client is 750 miles away. There's no way I can fix a blue screen. You know, they can't even get the computer to boot. I can't even get into safe mode, much less get into something with a networking ability so I can remote into the machine and fix it. So, you know, short of having something like a Spider IP KVM, we're host. So worst case scenario, I could have reinstalled the operating system on the virtual disk. But wait, it gets better. Because it's a virtual machine, I'm able to actually take snapshots of that virtual computer. And before we installed any piece of software, we made a snapshot. And so I literally just clicked on the computer, roll back snapshot, and I said, you know, she called in, she goes, "My computer's not working." I look, oh, that's a real big problem. Click on the button, roll back the snapshot, boom, they're back in business. And they had no idea. They had no idea how close to catastrophe they had come. They had no idea how much we had saved them from a catastrophe. As far as they knew, it was a 5-minute inconvenience, and we were able to get them back up and running. That's the advantage to running on virtual machines.
Sweet. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and the advantages go on. I could talk for hours, and thank you very much for the call. Let's go to Brian in South Carolina. Hi, Brian. Welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
For having me.
Hi there, Brian. How can we help? Hey, Brian. Brian, your phone is breaking up quite a bit. Can you maybe hold the phone and talk straight into it? We'll see if we can get a better signal. Brian. All right, Brian. We're gonna yeah, there we go. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm looking for a Windows Easy Transfer tool, but for like a Ubuntu desktop. Is there any software you can recommend like that for Ubuntu?
Yeah, so you just want to move the install from one computer to the other?
Well, basically, just want all my configuration, maybe apps and files from one computer to the other without having to start from a fresh build. Yeah.
Sure. Well, there's a couple different ways you can do it. The easiest way, the way that I move, if I'm transitioning from one computer to another computer and I want to move everything exactly the way it is, I use a piece of software called Clonezilla. And essentially, basically, you put it onto a USB flash drive, you boot off of the flash drive, and it'll actually make an entire image of your computer. And then you can take and unpack that image back onto completely new hardware. You can also use that to provision multiple machines at the same time, if you want to create what we call a deployment image, and then you go deploy that image across, hundreds or thousands of machines. That's one way to do it. Second thing is, as far as the settings are actually pretty straightforward, right? Most of the settings in Linux are stored in the home directory. So it's going to be /home/ whatever your username is. And you can take and copy all of those. If you just copy that home folder, it will copy your Thunderbird mail profile. It will copy all of your contacts, all of your mail, all of your Firefox bookmarks, all of your program settings. All that stuff is stored in the home directory. As far as applications go, there's no way that I know of, short of cloning Clonezilla, the computer. No way I know of to back up all of the installed applications. However, if one time you make a list of all the applications that you install on the computer, and I actually do this, I have just a little script, sudo apt-get install, and then a list of all the programs I use. So anytime I want to reimage, quote unquote, my machine, I can just run that script and it will reinstall all of my programs. Then I can move the home directory back over and I have all my settings back. Any of those sound like that's a usable answer to you?
Absolutely. I like the home directory idea. I didn't really realize that it grabbed all my settings from, because that's not some option out in Windows, so that helps a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much for the call. We appreciate having you this hour. David is with us from Alaska. Hi, David. Welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hi, Noah. I wanted to ask about customer support ticket systems. What do you use to manage customer support requests as opposed to, I'll use Bugzilla or something like that to track software bugs, but what about, your just day-to-day routine customer support issues?
Yeah, sure. So there are two pieces of software that I always recommend. The first is what you're actually talking about, which is the ticket system. And for that, we use a product called OS Ticket. Been very, very happy with OS Ticket. OS Ticket allows the creation of tickets in one of two ways. You can give your customers actual login credentials, and you give them a web URL, and they're able to log in and create the tickets that way. The second way they can do it is we have an email address. And that email address is given out to all of our contract customers, and they are able to send an email into the ticket system. That automatically opens a ticket. The nice thing, David, about the email portion of that is the customer never has to remember login information. They never have to remember passwords. And more importantly, they don't have to do anything out of the ordinary to communicate with our support staff. Basically, all of that's being handled through email. So, for example, when they get when we update a ticket, we don't have to worry about them installing an app or something for them to get the update of the ticket response, because their email client's going to send them a push notification, to their phone. So you got a new email from Altispeed. And then all the customer has to do is reply to the email, and that automatically gets updated into the ticket. If the customer emails in a screen cap or a config file or something like that, that's automatically uploaded into the ticket system. And we have a size limits. I think we top out at like 25 megs, so that obviously the whole thing doesn't just fill up with garbage. But that's been a very effective way. They have a mobile app. Works a little better on Android than on iOS, but it exists on both. The app supports creating new tickets, responding to existing tickets. There is a very granular permission control system, so I can go in there and say, so for example, we have a knowledge base, and some of our knowledge base is open to the listeners of the Ask Noah Show, anyone really. It's available at portal.altispeed.com. And there's some basic how-to guides. Anytime we do a how-to guide for the Ask Noah Show, we actually put it inside of that knowledge base. And we had a guy that actually quit Altispeed. He moved on to another company, and he sent me an email about a month later, and he said, the knowledge base that you guys have at Altispeed, that was one of my favorite things about working there, because there was so much information in that knowledge base. Is there any way I could still get access to that? What we opened up to the public is a tiny fraction of what we have available internally. But some of those things, for example, are the various debit card numbers and debit card, expiration date and CID codes for our company. And so I can go in there granularly and say, this person, I want to now be able to make purchases. So I can give them that permission. Then they can see all of the appropriate Altispeed, debit card information, and then they can go make purchases on Amazon, so on and so forth. So I've really been happy with OS Ticket. And the latest update they've had a UI refresh, and it has been absolutely phenomenal. Now, the second piece does that answer your question?
It does definitely answer my question.
Okay, I want to sidebar with you for just a second. There's another piece of software that is really, really useful. OS Ticket is really, really good at solving customer issues. What OS Ticket is not great for, because it's not designed for it, is facilitating the beginning of a business transaction. So, for example, I'm standing inside of a restaurant, and this actually happened, and the owner is standing there, and he can't get his POS to work because his point-of-sale system is not communicating properly with the network, and he can't actually ring up the sale. I always carry a set of cards on me, and basically it says, the front of the card says something like, we'll fix that for free. And then on the back it says that we'll provide up to 1 hour service gratis to the business owner. And I use that as a way of getting new business. And so I just handed him one of those cards, and I said, I own an IT company, and so if there's ever anything we can do to fix this, let me know. And I handed him one of those cards. Now, I would like to track that particular interaction, so that when that gentleman calls our customer support, which he did, calls our customer support, people don't answer the phone and go, what? Who are you? What did you want? What? You want us to come POS? Hold on. Do we know you? You don't want any of that, right? You want him to say, oh, thank you, Mr. So-and-so. We really appreciate hearing from you. I'm glad that you decided to give us a shot, and we'll absolutely get somebody out there and take care of it right away, because first impressions, you only get one chance to do that. So for those instances, we actually deployed a piece of software called Zurmo, Z-U-R-M-O. And what Zurmo does is it's essentially a competitor to Salesforce. And so essentially what it does is it does lead aggregation and sales. So I can go in there and I can create a note and say, I talked to this guy, he might be calling. This is his problem. This is what he needs. This is, whatever. So when he calls in and the customer sales associate, he goes, I'm interested in, doing service. Do you have an existing contract with us? No. Pass him off to a sales guy. Sales guy opens up and he goes, oh, Mr. So-and-so. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, about a week ago, your POS system wasn't working that day. Oh yeah, that's exactly what it was. And it really brings home a solid, professional relationship. And then once that account is created in Zurmo, we can continue to track that. So if a client comes back and says, well, now we want to add, access points. Now we want to add, I don't know, a stereo system or something like that, we can go back and say, well, this is a potential sale for an existing customer. And then our salespeople can follow up with that, pass it off to the technicians, and it creates a nice, even workflow. Does that better answer your question? Does that answer the question you didn't even ask?
That does answer the question I didn't even ask. That's actually fantastic. I have been looking for a better way to track, all the people that I hand business cards to and things like that. Because, if I hand my business card out to 5 people, one of them calls me back and be like, hey, you gave me your business card. Great. I gave my business card to 10 other people this week. Who are you?
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. I should tell you, David, both OS Ticket and Zurmo are both available. They are both open source products. So the code is available up on GitHub, and they are both available at no additional charge. So that is another reason to support those two projects. And we thank you for the call. We'll move on to James from Pennsylvania. Hi, James. Welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hi, Noah. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I was curious. I know I've heard you mention multiple times your vast video collection, and I was just curious what you do to rip Blu-rays. I know DVD Fab this year has released a version of multiple programs for Linux, and part of that does include Blu-ray, but I was curious what you do, if there's a better way, a different way of doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start out by saying this. I have a special place in my heart for DVD Fab. They were one of the earliest pioneer. There's one of the first. If I can take a history lesson back with you, one of the first software programs to ever come out for ripping DVDs was a program called DVD Shrink. That was it was a Windows program, and back in the day when DVDs first came out and people started ripping them, that was a program that a lot of people used, and it did a really, really good job. And over the years, the development started to slack off, and eventually it got to the point where you couldn't really rip a DVD with DVD Shrink because it couldn't break the encryption. And about that time, DVD Fab was an up-and-coming thing, and I used DVD Fab for years. In fact, I was so impressed with the support from that company and the software product that they made that was one of the hardest. Everyone has that. That's the program that I can't get off of Windows for. That was my program. It was such a good program that I was having a really hard time dragging myself off of Windows. And so what I did for years and years and years was I ran it in a VM, and I passed through the CD drive into the actual virtual machine, because little known secret about DVD Fab, if you try to just share the disk, it actually can't break the encryption properly and all that. And what would happen was I would lose the license key anytime I would reload that VM. And it was funny because I had this thing in my head where I would say, I could go find her. I could email him and tell him, but you know what? I really like the company, and so I would just buy another one. So I probably have, like, over the years, probably 6 or 7 licenses to DVD Facts. It's such a great company. So the fact that you're calling and telling me now they're supporting Linux is that really, they hold a special place in my heart. That said, lately I have been using 2 programs. One is a program called Brasero, Brasero, which will make an entire image, much like DVD Fab does, of the entire disk. And one of these 2, I'll alternate because sometimes one program will rip it and the other one can't. I have never had a movie that both of them that one of the other couldn't rip. The second one I use is a program called K3B, which is the CD burner application that's for the KDE folks. And one of those 2 programs almost always can rip, not almost always, it always can rip one of the 2 discs. I will tell you, though, there are certain times, like, so for instance, Redbox will sell you the DVDs that they're no longer using. So you can go buy them for like $2 or $2.50 or something. And so that's a place I buy a lot of my movies now. But there is no real, the reason I ripped ISOs of the movie is because I want all of the menus and I want all the subtitles and all the extra features. Dirty little secret about rental discs, they now make special rental discs that don't contain anything else other than the feature film, and then this irritating ad that says, this is a rental disc, and if you're caught in possession of it, then it's illegal, which it's not because they sell them. And so for those discs, I'm doing what the majority of people that rip movies probably do, and I'm using a program called Make MKV. And Make MKV will actually extract the feature film off of it'll extract anything you want, but we extract just the feature film off of the disc, and it makes an MKV full resolution, doesn't lose any quality. And that's a way that you can rip a DVD or a Blu-ray if it's off of a disc that doesn't have any of those other features.
Yeah, okay. That's great. Yeah, I was curious. I had, just like you, that's been kind of a sticking point for me with moving over to Linux, and when I discovered DVD Fab had done that, I thought that was awesome. But I knew you had mentioned that in the past, so I just wanted to pick your brain on that and see if there's anything else that's better or other options out there, so I appreciate your help.
Appreciate it. We thank you for the call. Yeah, DVD Fab will forever hold a special place in my heart. There's no doubt about that. And if they have a Linux version, the DVD Fab folks, you can count on getting a couple bucks from me because I will be buying it. So here's what I'm going to do. For the again, phone lines are open, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624. You can email the show live at AskNoahShow.com. What we're going to do with the rest of the program is I have 2 guests coming up. One is in studio, Mr. Willie, sitting here patiently while I bang away through some of these questions on the phone, and he's got a very interesting story of how he got started in independent media, switched his workflow over to Linux, and we're going to be having him on in a little bit. And before we get to him, I want to bring on another guest. This is a gentleman that he is in the Ask Noah Telegram group, and you can be too at telegram.asknoahshow.com. And his name is Eric. And Eric has he has new business syndrome. He has gotten started with a new IT consulting business. And he knew that I ran an IT consulting business. And so him and I have been going back, over the past week or so. And you can just feel the passion just oozing out of the chat. Like, he's up all hours of the night. He's designing web pages. He's creating business cards. He is out, advertising his services. And he's really developing a core model, to send to his customers. And this is an old Zig Ziglar quote, but it's, if you help enough people, you can have anything you want in the world if you help enough people get what they want in the world. And Eric is definitely well on his way to doing that. So joining us on the program via phone is Eric from Kansas. Hi, Eric. Welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
How you doing, Noah?
Excellent. So thank you very much for taking the time to let me pick your brain. So tell me, what was the first thing that happened when you decided, when that aha moment clicked and you're like, I'm going to go own my own business. I'm going to go do this.
Well, actually, I've got that small business syndrome twice over. I actually have a 2 or 3 year old lighting design company. So we do concert lighting for the most part. We do some high end weddings and so on and so forth. I'm a huge music junkie, and one of the things that kind of triggered me to look into IT consulting was the fact that your typical 8 to 5 enterprise type IT job doesn't always give me the flexibility to travel or to leave work early to go and set up all my lights, all my cables, my console, and it struck me one day interviewing. I was looking for a new job, and I was interviewing with a startup, and they were very passionate about what they were doing. It was a farm big data company, basically collecting a whole bunch of metrics off of combines and that kind of thing, and running it through servers to running it through servers to kind of analyze what your potential yield is and otherwise help the farmers out better utilize their fields and their equipment and whatnot. And these people were really passionate about what they were building and their mission. And I really felt for these folks because they really needed someone on the infrastructure side, and they just, they didn't have enough money in their budget to pay for a good sysadmin. So these people are developing code all day for their device to go into the combine, but then they have to take a step away from that to go and do server patches, to go and do hardware repairs, everything but what they were passionate about. And being the type of personality that if I don't fully believe in what I'm doing, I might as well not do it because, my heart's not going to be in it. And it kind of struck me that between my lighting design business and going out and meeting people and figuring out what they're passionate about, and is there anything I can do to help you reach that? I realized that here in Kansas City, and I'm sure all over the country and the world, that there's a whole bunch of people out there that are passionate about their project, passionate about bringing something to life, but they're so tied down with infrastructure that they can't do that. Well, that's where my consulting business comes in. Our goal is to offload that off of people and allow them to pursue what they're really passionate about.
Absolutely, yeah. Wow, man. Talk about you know what? If I ever need a day off, you can just fill on in for me, Eric, because you got this thing covered. No, but on a serious note, though, really, you have the heart of a servant, and what that is going to get you is you're quickly going to get to a point where you have developed a really firm trust with your clients, and that is something that no amount of money can buy. That's something that, serving those people over and over and over again and serving them well over and over and over again means that, you become, a trusted name. And you're absolutely right. There's a lot of people out there that they have passion, but it's a passion for what they want to do. The passion isn't for their IT infrastructure. That just needs to work. And so if they have somebody like you to come alongside them and do their website and stuff like that, man, they are really set. So tell me the story. What's the name of the company? When do you officially open, or have you already opened? What's the pricing? How do people get a hold of you? That kind of thing.
Yeah. So one thing you said in your very gracious intro that I should probably correct before I get in trouble. My wife is actually a graphic designer, and she's been working on the logos for both businesses, and we're creating t-shirts and that kind of thing.
Yeah, do credit go to the wife. Yeah, absolutely.
And I definitely wouldn't be anywhere near where I'm at, or much less having even tried either of these businesses without her love and support. So I don't know if she'll listen to this or not, but I'm covered.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the lighting design business is Let There Be Light, and you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn at BeLightKC and BeLightKC.com. And then the more relevant topic is the IT Guides, and the website is theitguys.us. We're on social media at ITGuysKC. So Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and we're finalizing designs for our logo. We kind of trialed one, and it may look great on the screen, but when you put it on a social media banner or something, it's sometimes you just look at it and go, "What were we thinking?"
Mm-hmm.
So we're currently redesigning that, and I'm working on the website right now. But that really hasn't kept me from building this thing. In fact, I started collecting clients before we even had a domain, I batted around names for probably 6 months before I finally settled on one. And it actually came up because when I'd go to, see, I've got 4 clients to date, and whenever I'd go into their offices, I would always get referred to as the IT guy. Or I'll go to a concert venue, and I'm always the lighting guy. So it seemed appropriate that the business would reflect that. So we're technically open right now. Pricing is kind of on I've got a flat hourly rate for right now, and I'm offering free discovery. So basically, I'll come into your office, spend a couple of hours, talk about what your goals are, take a look at the existing infrastructure, and put together a rough plan. All that's free. And then after that, it's just $50 an hour for my time. And
man, that's very reasonable. That's very competitive. Now, Eric, and if you don't want to share the story on air, you can feel free to politely bow out. But any chance you'd want to talk about the given situation you and I were talking about, where you had this guy and he just felt comfortable just having you in the loop? Does that ring a bell?
Okay. Yeah, I know the story you're talking about, and I won't mention names because there's potential legal battle going on between this client and anyway. So the situation that Noah is referring to is I had a client referred to me by an old boss of mine, actually, and he suspected that a former employee had hacked his network and was monitoring not only his mail, but all of his clients' mail and his wife's mail. And so he was trying to prove it. And and so, over the course of trying to prove it, he was looking through logs, and it was a cPanel issue, and they came to me as a Linux systems administrator and said, "Hey, this runs on Linux. Can you read the log?" Well, I can give it a shot. And I saw some things that didn't feel right, but I mean, you're talking about a company and the balance. You're talking about his clients and the balance. You're talking about my family and my own reputation and the balance. So I wanted to be sure, and I opened up a case with cPanel, and we went back and forth, and I got to the end of this ordeal, and sent Noah a telegram and said, I don't know if I feel okay about this. I mean, I'm charging him for my time, but I didn't really do anything in the end. But I realized through all of that sometimes just having somebody there, just being present, being a sounding board for someone to kind of talk through, and was sometimes enough for a client to feel like you did a great job.
Yeah, the thing is, a lot of times what gives clients, and I've seen this time and time and time again, it's not that they necessarily needed you, it's that they needed you to let them know that they didn't need you. And you know what I mean? So like, if something had gone south, if they ran into a question that they couldn't answer, you were right there at the bat. And I've done kind of the similar thing at Altispeed Technologies, where I make myself personally available to any client anytime there is something urgent that comes up. We have a very talented team of technicians that do a very good job of taking care of people. But, if something comes up, especially if it's mission critical, that's where I focus my time. And I can tell just from talking to you for 5 minutes, or even before that, just talking to you on Telegram, that your company is booming. You've clearly found a need and a place to serve and a clientele that really is grateful to have you there. And I have no doubt that you're going to be knocking it out of the park. And one of the interesting things is you've done this all or almost all on Linux, isn't that right?
That's right. I am a recovering Mac OS user. In fact, I came across Jupiter Broadcasting and the Ask Noah show a short time after that. I came in the final month of Linux Action Show and started becoming part of the community and digesting content and to fix this feeling that I was just kind of stuck in my career. And being a Linux systems administrator for the past 10 years, really felt like there was something missing, and realized it was a community. Open source is not just a type of code distribution; it's a community. And so over the past 9 months or so, I've sold my MacBook, and I've got a Lenovo that's running Arch, and I've been moving some of a lot of my personal content off of iCloud and off of Google and onto open source projects like Nextcloud. Like today, I was doing the mind-numbingly painful process of moving a lot of my passwords out of LastPass and into KeePass. And so it's been a push on both fronts. I'm trying to move my household onto open source projects, but I also use that as a learning experience for the business of building an entire company off of open source, because that's where my heart lies.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you don't feel like you just traded your actual working machine for a non-functional machine, but you get the badge of some crazy religion. It's not like that. It's you're getting real work done, and you're just doing it in a way that nobody can pull the rug out from under you.
Yeah, very much so.
Wow. Thank you so much, Eric, for letting us pick your brain. We really appreciate it. And thanks so much for being a listener to the Ask Noah show. You'll come back in a couple months and let us know how it's going?
Yeah, of course. And as you mentioned, I'm in Discord and Telegram a lot of times during the day as well.
Outstanding. Eric from Kansas City, theitguys.us. Do I have that right? And the IT Guys on social media?
I'm sorry, say again?
Theitguys.us. That's your website, yeah?
Correct. And then we're IT Guys KC, and I'll put. Would you mind throwing those in the show notes there? No.
Absolutely, yeah. Please send them over to me, and thank you again so much for taking the time to call in. We really appreciate it. And there you have it, folks. I mean, that's really what this amounts to. Is that we're not advocating some crazy religion. We're not suggesting you work into move into a cult or something like that, or move into a commune. No. We're just saying that there is a loving and embracing community out there, and if you take advantage of it, you can lower your costs. You can boost your bottom line. You can make a really good business. I make a lot of money off of people by peddling open source stuff. It works. Eric is proof that it works. Other people in telegram.asknoahshow.com are proof that it works. So give it a shot. Chaz is calling from New York. Hi, Chaz. Welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, Noah. How's it going today?
Excellent. Hey, are you going to be around next week if we do a show live from New York City?
I'm not from that part of New York. I'm from the part of New York that likes guns.
Oh,
and is closer to Canada.
Okay, all right, Northern New York. But I tell you what, if you make it down to the liberal pool down in New York City, dinner's on me for all the support for the Ask Noah show. How can we help today, though?
Man, I might have to do that.
7 p.m., brother. I'll let you know.
All right. Well, around Christmas time of this year, I was trying to convert my mom to the cult of Linux. I'm sorry, not a cult. What I did was I put an SSD into her MacBook, and her constant complaint about her MacBook has always been, I don't like Mac OS, although she's one of those people who's not really that tech savvy, so she doesn't really know how to articulate that it's not Mac OS she likes. So I said, Mom, let me put the software on that I think, will be more helpful to you. And right or wrong, I put her on Manjaro because I figured XFCE would be the closest thing that she would feel familiar with. And having the opportunity to watch her work on it, it seems like she's getting frustrated by the newer features that get built into, a newer OS, and ones that you wouldn't expect to be there, like touchpad gestures. And it seems like what she just wants is the OS to work and get out of her way and allow her to do work. So I guess not so much a legit question as, can you maybe do a future show where you give your best suggestions for how to get non-tech savvy people working well with Linux? And with one final caveat, I think she's familiar enough with the OS that switching a distro or switching desktop environments would kind of be counterproductive at this point. Am I making sense?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, we could totally do a show on that. Lately these days, I've been moving more and more towards Ubuntu Mate, which again would involve switching the desktop. But the reason I put people on Ubuntu Mate, Chaz, is because they have the panel layout, which means that I can literally go from a Windows-like layout to a Mac OS-like layout, back to a traditional Linux GNOME 2 style layout, back to a Unity layout without ever having to. It's never actually a new desktop, and I never actually reinstalled the OS. And so that's really a great place for those of you that are at the starting stage to start. And I will we'll go back and we'll definitely plan a show on that. And I don't know if are you let's see, can we bring Chaz back? There he is. Yeah, let's bring Chaz back up. Are you following us on Twitter at Ask Noah Show, or are you in the Telegram group telegram.asknoahshow.com, one of those places?
I've got both up and running, and in my defense, Matei was a very strong contender when I wanted to do this to her, but I did this project around the same time that you uploaded a video about how you were fed up with Ubuntu and you wanted to switch everybody, and you didn't want an OS that you had to install every 2 years, which was my thought as well. The goal of this was to be less tech support than I already was.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works. Well, I'm glad you're in both those places. I will just keep an eye out, and I'll touch on it at the end of the show here. But I want to make sure that we get you the information for where we're going to be in New York if that ends up happening, and I don't have that in front of me right now. So yeah, anyway, that would be great. I want to give Will a chance to chime in here. He's been sitting so patiently. So Will is a founder of Sandbagger News. Sandbagger News is it .org?
Yep.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about, you and I both went through the 97 flood together. Tell me about that.
Well, I was 3 years old, so I can't say I remember a whole lot about it. But
it wasn't a lot of fun, I'll tell you.
Yeah. So I hear. In 1997, there was a big flood in the Red River Valley, went haywire. And at the time, it was actually the largest evacuation of U.S. citizens since the Civil War. And so it was a big deal. Nobody died, but, it was funny. Growing up, I kept hearing these stories about sandbaggers, and we've talked a lot about this, the idea of a sandbagger, somebody who just shows up when they're needed. And with the help of everybody else, they're able to do what they need to do. They save the town, they put sandbags around people's homes and save people's lives in some cases. So when you came as a guest speaker to one of my classes at the University of North Dakota, and you told me about Linux, and you told me about this community that exists to help each other and to empower themselves, empower everyone. The whole sandbagging thing just kind of...
It just clicked with what you were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it took form. And so you came over to my house and you switched us all over to Linux, and it made so much sense, and I felt like we were sandbagging the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of a funny story. Like, we were sitting there after class, and he's talking to me. He says, I'm kind of interested in this, and when could you would you be willing to help? Yeah, of course. I'm always willing to help somebody switch to Linux. And he goes, when? What are you doing right now? So we walked back to his house and we installed Linux on like 5 different machines. But you have taken that to an entirely different level. Will, you have gotten to the point now where you've collected hours and hours and hours of video footage in where was the last place you were at?
I just got back from Iceland.
Yeah, taking photos and taking video, and then we recently put together a FreeNAS box. So your file server, we put together a file server, and you loaded that thing up with how much space?
12 terabytes of storage. And when I tell my dad about that, he says, "What the heck is a terabyte?" And
yeah, exactly.
I say, I don't know, but stick around. Noah's telling me there's things called petabytes, and you don't even want to know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you've taken and you went in and we put a small gigabit switch, and you've been dumping footage, and as you're finding out, when you start pulling a lot of footage, especially where you're working 4K off the drone, that sucker, it fills up fast. And so Will got a first-hand treat. He kind of took it at a leap of faith. We started talking about this, and I said, he goes, "What kind of external hard drive would you buy?" I said, "Well, I wouldn't. I would buy this. These Western Digital Reds. I put them into the box. Let's build a file server." You just kind of took me at my word. You didn't really question it. You're like, "Yeah, sure." But then just about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, it's like, "Oh, I'm out of space, and we need to go from 6 terabytes to 12." We put the next drive in, we click a couple buttons. I'm like, there you go, Will. Now you got 12 terabytes.
Boom. Yeah, it was really cool. So I've been traveling around a lot, and I finally just got back a couple weeks ago, and I had not left my house all day today. I was in the basement working, just like living in this file server, because I'm having so much fun moving all the footage around, and that gigabit switch did the trick.
Yeah.
And I'm having a lot of fun moving things around, realizing what I'm able to do with all this footage now, finally.
So tell me a little bit about your workflow. So we got a Canon 70D?
Yeah. I was just kind of explaining this to my mother today. She was asking, like, what do you mean when you edit a video? What does that mean exactly? Do you throw a fade in and some music or something? I was like, well, I'm still learning a lot about this, but what I like doing is dump all that footage. Now it's in my file server and import that into Lightworks. And I kind of chunk through all the footage at first and make one big long timeline of all the usable stuff, and then make another clean timeline where I start putting the story together, and I kind of focus on the audio first and get people's voices usually telling the story, and then drop B-roll on top of there. And you know, you can spend days and days in your basement if the sun doesn't shine, you don't open your curtains.
Absolutely.
It can be kind of a soulless activity for anyone who's edited a lot of video, but knowing that I'm using all these cool peer-based programs and this community is always got my back makes it a lot easier. And, you know, at first I was freaked out when you were telling me that using Linux was like driving stick on your car.
Yeah.
Which is actually not something I know how to do. So I was like, geez, dude, what if I run into problems, you know? And I'm talking to your listeners now. If y'all haven't figured this out, Noah is one of the most generous people that on the planet. And I'm so proud to be a G-Funker with him from good old Grand Forks. And, you know, he's always there to help me answer questions. But just the other day, actually, I was really proud of myself because when I came back from 6 months of traveling, I had forgotten my password.
To your Ubuntu box.
Yeah. Yep. So I was like, oh, no, I'm going to have to bother Noah and tell him I, you know, lock myself out. Like, this is embarrassing. But I fixed it. I mean, you look it up, it's not too hard. But I felt good being able to fix that problem on my own. So when I finally did message you, hey, I'm back, let's hang out, I was proud to say that A, I locked myself out, but B, I got myself back in.
Exactly. Drop to that run level 1. But, and you know, the thing is you have then come along and I've asked you questions and you were helping me just the other day with, you know, some video editing issues, color correction, stuff like that. Like, so it gets to a point where, again, we see this community thing coming around. And, you know, it was a joke I was telling on the air earlier. There's a group of people that make fun of us Linux people. And they're like, oh, you guys are some sort of cult or religion. That's the only reason you do it is out of loyalty to the religion. It's like, no. I do it because I helped you get started with something and then it came full circle and now I was in a time crunch and I really needed to get this particular video project out and now Will's helping me get that done. So, you know, it's an ebb and flow process. It's a give and take and it's been really fun. And, you know, we at the Ask Noah show are, you know, real happy that you're here in studio, but also we just kind of want to follow your series of success, as it were. So thank you very much for coming in the studio and telling us a story. If people want to find out more, where can they go?
Sandbaggernews.org. You know, I haven't updated the website in a while because I've been traveling now, but this whole week I've been home. I know I've got a lot of work to do and I'm able to do that work now. And it's all thanks to the empowerment you've given me and that we've given ourselves here. So.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys on Twitter?
Not yet. You know, we have a Twitter, but these are the things I'm excited to get started now finally.
Yeah, absolutely.
And crunch out some of these projects. And I know you'll be around to help me out and let's see where this community takes us.
Very much so. Let's take a couple more calls, huh? Eugene from Russia, your question for Will and me.
Yes. Oh, Noah, thank you for taking my call and for doing actually this great show, really for inspiring people, I would say. You have folks listening to you in Russia too.
Well, thank you, sir. We are honored. How can we help you?
Well, I have a question about network privacy. And the question is, does using HTTPS connection leaves full URL addresses visited by you open to, say, ISP or system administrator? And what about information, say, credit card info or something like this, sent via pages encrypted only partly? As I understand, there are some pages, only some elements of which are encrypted. This is the first part of the question. And the second part concerning email, maybe I can ask later a bit.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to ask the second part now, or you want the first part of your answer? I'll answer the first part, then you can come back. So basically, what it is if you have any portion of the page that has a field that you'll be entering information, and that field is not set up to transmit that information through HTTPS, your browser should flag that page and give you a warning and say, not all of the information on this page is secure. and it will not be transmitted in a secure fashion. And that's your clue to get out of Dodge. I got to tell you though, there are some valid reasons for having unsecured information on page. So, for example, we are in the process of testing a new credit card processor, and the credit card processor that we are going to, we have not paid for a certificate for our main page because there is no real customer data flowing through there. Now, anyone that has a contract with us knows that because you can't actually make a payment. It won't actually transmit the payment information through. But we get people all the time that go there and they look at it and they go, oh, you have an unencrypted thing. How can an IT company not know that? And I've gotten to the point where I get pretty salty about it. And I say, well, if you're a customer, you'd know. But you're not a customer, so I don't have to explain it to you. Because I'm a crotchety old guy, but yeah, you want to keep an eye on if those pages are encrypted. And just look for that green padlock in Firefox or Chrome. What was the second part of your question?
Yeah. The second part is about Wi-Fi network, and well, in the institution of mine where I work, we have a Wi-Fi network authorization realized via CA certificate, whatever it means, similar for all the users, and some private key file, which is unique for all the users, password protected, and so on. And the question is, does such a system leave any room for private networking at all, or everything I read, paste online is open for network admins of the institution?
No, it's not. So that key is that is a separate key infrastructure from your web traffic. That key infrastructure is specific to authenticating into the network. The encryption key infrastructure for actually transmitting information from your computer out to another server, that is an entirely separate infrastructure as well. In fact, the key-based, the certificate-based Wi-Fi-based authentication is actually used by DEF CON, and it enhances security. It does not weaken it.
So the traffic still is left unknown for administrators.
Right. Well, okay, hold on. Not unknown. If I'm the so okay, a couple of things. First of all, even with nothing else in place other than the fact that I have access to the router, if I have access to the logs, unless you're using a VPN, I will be able to see which sites you are querying. So I know that you went to, whatever, gmail.com or amazon.com. I can't, however, tell what you purchased, or what information was transmitted to amazon.com because there's a tunnel. However, there's one exception to that. If I have administrative access of the network, I can do something called port mirroring. And so I can basically log into the switch and tell it to duplicate all of the traffic on this particular port over to a secondary port where I plug in a computer with Wireshark. And in that scenario, I would be able to capture all of the traffic that is coming in and out.
And by saying that URL addresses are open, do you mean the full URL addresses like google.com/ and some query, or just google.com and that's it?
Depends on what you type in. If you go to google.com and you're navigating, I'd have to look at a router log to be sure. But my gut tells me if you go to google.com and then click on something, that will not trigger a different router log. But when you type in an address, it's going to, especially in all of our networks where the router is set up to function as the primary DNS server to begin with. That way we can block certain websites, stuff like that. In those cases, I'm going to see everything you type into a web browser and press enter on.
So the full address. Okay, I see.
Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for the call from Russia. We really appreciate it. Anthony is calling from North Carolina. Hi, Anthony. Welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hello, Noah. Anthony here. I'm a IT for a nonprofit, and we have a couple of Linux, actually Mint Linux, computer rooms. Now, we ran a script that I found on the internet a long time ago that kind of acted like deep freeze, but it's lacking. So some changes are leaking through, and, kids are changing icons, backgrounds, putting jars of Minecraft on the computer. So we're looking for something that can lock down the computers as hard as deep freeze does in Windows.
Well, I'll tell you what I do to solve this exact problem. You let me know if this would work for you. What we do is the first thing we do is we create a guest user that has no password and automatically set them log in automatically on the machine. The second thing we do is we remove pseudo privileges from that user. So that user only has standard permissions. They don't have elevated permissions. Third thing we do.
Check already?
Yep. The next thing we do is we go through and we create a script that upon boot up, it destroys everything in the home directory, which is really the only thing that they should be able to touch, the only thing they should have permission to touch. And then we take, back up. Before we destroy the home directory, we set everything up the way we want it. And then we take a copy of the home directory, tarball that up, and we put it inside of the root drive. Don't allow permission for anyone other than root to touch that particular tarball. Upon boot up, there's a script, and it destroys the home directory, untars the tarball of the what we call sterile home directory, and then puts that back into the home directory. So if somebody, made a change to a browser, or in the case of Minecraft, downloaded a Minecraft thing and untarred it into the downloads directory, and it was running from there, all of that is going to get wiped out upon restart.
Okay, so my next question with that is how would you deploy this, so someone's not walking around pasting a script to from one computer to the next, moving on, because I'm talking like 60 computers at this point.
Oh, sure. Well, so the way we do it is I have an SD card with this particular deployment on it. And what I do is I literally DD the image onto the drives, that we call them our kiosks. And if a kiosk is ever damaged or they buy a new one or something like that, we literally take that little SD card, plug it in, we DD the image onto the hard drive, and then put the hard drive back in the computer and send it off. You could, if you wanted to deploy this in mass, especially if they're all in one place, you could use something like Clonezilla. And you could pixie boot all of the machines to Clonezilla and have them read from a configured image.
Yeah, that's something that we're working on. Our current network couldn't move big files across it. It's still like 100 megabits. Maybe actually getting an actual 40-ish on a good day when the sun and the moon are aligned in the right place.
Yeah, right. I remember those days. Yeah, the only other thing you could do, and this isn't much better than having somebody walk around with a script, is you could load that Clonezilla image onto a couple of flash drives, and you could have people plug it in flash drives and boot the machine up. And the nice thing is, it may take 20 to 30 minutes to actually image the computer, but it only takes about 15 seconds of actual time to plug the flash drive in, click on the buttons, and then you walk away, go get coffee while 5 of them image, and then you unplug those 5, plug in the next 5, and you'd whip through it pretty fast, even if it's 60 machines. I've done the biggest deployment I've done is 300, and we did all those by hand, so it's possible.
This seems like it would be a great thing to do with some teenagers. Like I said, as a nonprofit, we could put them to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great idea. Get the high school kids involved or something, huh?
Yes. It's like, and basically, I think I can see everything that everything with what you're saying. Just throw in a simple cron job, delete with root, untar, and paste, done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will, what we'll do is we'll put a link in the show notes to that particular script that we have. And if you want to use it, you can. Scott is calling. Hey, Scott, I got about a minute. Go. Scott with UUID issues? Hello? All right, Scott, I'm going to put you back on hold, and I don't know if we'll have time to get your issue sorted out this time, but perhaps you can call in next week. Hey, guys, next week we're going to be live from New York City. That's right, New York City and New York. The Ask Noah Show is going there to bring you live coverage of the Ubuntu Rally. We're going to be meeting up with friends of the show like Martin Wimpress and Alan Pope, and we'd love it if you could join us. Now, we haven't exactly secured our plans yet, but we have something in the works because I visit New York pretty regularly, so I know a couple people there, and I told them, I said, this is the first Ask Noah Show's first trip to New York, and we want to make it easy, we want to make it accessible, and we want to have a big party because we know that there's going to be a lot of people in the New York area. Chaz, for example, from New York, that has called in a couple different times. We want to have the opportunity to meet up with them. We want to have the opportunity to grab dinner with you guys, have some drinks, and we want you to be able to listen to the show live. So I have something, it's like 98% finalized. I am just waiting for one other person to sign off on this before I can officially go on the air and say it is happening. So hopefully I will have that. I pushed really hard, you guys, to have that information for you tonight, because I know that there's some of you that don't follow us on social media, and this is the only real information that you have. But the show will be live from New York City, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Next week. That's Monday the 25th. And so if you don't usually check us out on social media, head over to facebook.com/AskNoahShow. Check us out on Twitter @AskNoahShow, or keep an eye on the Ask Noah subreddit. We'll have information in all those places, as well as the Telegram group, telegram.asknoahshow.com. That's all for this week. We'll see you back next week. A huge thanks to Ben, our producer, Sarah, our call screener, and Rakai, our video editor. We'll hand you off to Crosspoint coming up next on Locust Radio, KEQQ 88.3 LPFM, Grand Forks.